I'm here with Luca de Montezemolo, the, some would say, fiery head of Ferrari. Luca, stories this week that you actually smashed your own TV whilst watching the Brazilian Grand Prix.
This is true. I broke the 92-inch Plasmatronic super high-definition flat-screen gold television in my living room. I must admit this.
Well, it is understandable. You must have been furious that Felipe failed to clinch the World Championship in Brazil.
What? No, this was at the start of the race. James Allen, just the sound of his pathetic, reedy voice makes me want to smash and tear and rip. I want to hurt him so bad. I'm so sorry. I thought you were James Allen. Welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed, the show which likes to say, yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
We can. I can. Can you, Richard?
Yeah, I think I can. Well, no, not on Tuesday, though, because I'm busy.
OK, we don't on Tuesday.
And I've
so
got back knee.
Can you?
Pretty much any time.
Well, we can, and now America can as well. Although there's one element of America which I want to talk about in the show to kick off today, which might not be able to anymore. General Motors is spending $10,000 trillion billion every 30 seconds just to stay alive, isn't it?
Yeah.
How long will GM survive on life support? Offers, gentlemen, please.
As in, how long will it survive before it gets rescued in some way, or
will it get rescued?
I'd have thought so, because my ignorant take on this is that it's just too important a bit of the American economy to be allowed to just go belly up, which is what it will inevitably do without intervention. Because
absolutely, yeah, this is the problem. But the important thing is they cannot get credit anymore, as most people can't anymore. You know, these are the times we're in at the moment. So
no one in their right mind would lend money to GM.
No, I mean, why would you?
You'd be
you take one look at the I don't know, Buick range and go. Yeah. The problem is, actually, from a sort of car geek's point of view, that with Bob Lutz, God bless his 127-year-old heart, in charge, they're making better cars than they have for a good 20 years, I think. Certainly better looking cars. Now, I've always had this theory that the way to sell cars, rule one, make them look nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Rich, you're much better on the detail of the consumer car market than I am, certainly. But it strikes me that GM are really paying the price, to put it crudely, for being a bit too big and dumb and making too many big dumb cars for too long. You know, they've relied far too much, particularly in recent years, on selling a lot of trucks and SUVs, which they've made a lot of money out of.
But that's what America wanted.
Yeah, but the point is that even before the credit crunch happened, GM was relying too much on the money that it was making from those kinds of vehicles, and when they started to go out of fashion, which they did before the credit crunch hit, you know, they were not in a position to
diversify.
Offer, they were just, you know, they were relying too much on making $10,000 or $15,000 for every one of those big, clunky, silly SUVs.
Yeah, well, why not? I mean,
sure, you can't blame them for doing it in a way, but
profitable for them, because you know the development costs were written down a long time ago because the technology was from the 19th century, essentially.
So what you're saying is they didn't actually have a range of cars. They were narrow casting. They were all, basically they're V8s and they're going to weigh over 2,500 kilograms.
They weren't. I think the problem is actually that their strengths were in V8s and very, very simple cars, and at one point that was giving people what they wanted. They then diversified and were forced to, I suppose initially in the 70s, into smaller cars, four-cylinder cars and things like that. But the problem was, that wasn't their field of expertise at that point. And then, as they were catching on, the Japanese arrived, and that was their stock in trade.
Yeah.
And you look at a Honda Civic, you know, Honda were born to do small four-cylinder cars because it was sort of natural progression. That's what they started doing. So they did it very well. They did it with high quality at a good price. And GM were good at making V8 land yachts and trucks. And so by the time they'd sort of caught on to trying to make smaller cars, unfortunately, someone had already arrived to do it better.
Waiting.
And also, this has been the sea change, which happened in this country a long time ago, which is that people lost that sort of sense of obligation to buy domestic product.
Yeah.
And people in the US still have that to some degree, but just there's no shame in buying a Toyota anymore. Of course not, and there hasn't been here for a long time. You know, you go to France and everyone drives a Peugeot and a Renault and a Citroën, and a lot of people do. You know, and the same in Italy.
Although it is still, I think, as you say, more true in the States. That people they prefer to buy domestic if they can. You know, very few people, I think, in the UK really feel that strongly about buying British cars. It's a smaller part of the
you can't buy a British-owned car anymore, can you? You can buy cars built over here.
Well, the thing is, it's a very sad thing about this country that everyone sort of decided suddenly that they didn't have to buy a British-made car, but unfortunately the British car industry in a way did for itself with that, because they were just selling inadequate cars. They were selling cars that weren't really what people wanted. We were filming for Top Gear recently, and we, for various reasons, had a Ford Cortina 1600E. The Mark II.
Lovely.
And I looked at this car now.
Hang on.
It wasn't grey, was it?
Gareth has become absolutely engorged with excitement just the mention of this. I forgot to tell you off air about this one, but it was fabulous.
It was.
Have you got a glass of cold water? So the thing is,
I've had me moments. You can carry on.
I was looking at the 1600E, and I was just thinking, even now, you look at that car and you just think, they knew exactly what they were doing. They were giving people... It looked great now. That dish steering wheel, the wooden dashboard, the wheels, everything about it. And even if you couldn't afford a 1600E and you could only afford a basic Cortina, at least it gave you something within the same range to aspire to. Ford have always been very good at that. Now, Ford have moved out of Britain manufacturing-wise a while ago, but they do still... I mean, the new Fiesta was developed here.
But they tend to do it right. It may not be sort of super flashy, but they do it right.
They do it right. And it's something that British Leyland, as you know, the biggest car maker that we had, signally failed to do, you know, because they thought they could set the agenda rather than actually asking people what they wanted. So for Ford, well, you know, what would you've got a Cortina, what would you like to see in your next Cortina? And they'd go, well, I want a dish steering wheel, and I want fancy alloy wheels, and I want spot lamps in the grille, and then they'd go and build that car. Whereas BL would just have this prescriptive attitude where they'd say, what you want is a maxi.
Although to play devil's advocate to some extent, manufacturers, they have to go beyond simply giving people what they want. They have to have the foresight to, you know, kind of imagine what people are going to want in 5 years' time.
But it has to be
10 years'
tempered
time,
with building something that makes you money and is a breadwinner in the way that, say, you know, we wouldn't have the Renault Espace without them going out on a limb there. And, you know, in the first few months they sold sort of 5 of them or something. But at the same time, it was okay because they were knocking out enough Renault 5s to a receptive French public who would always buy domestic to be able to bankroll what initially was a failure.
And they invented a class of vehicles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another thing, I mean, British Leyland, actually, the failing of British Leyland is not said enough, is the fact that they were too clever. I mean, in some ways, they were too stupid. They made the wrong cars. They were clever in engineering terms, you know, hydroelastic suspension and all these kind of things that no one else was daring to do. You know, Ford brought out the front-wheel drive Escort in 1980, and it was hailed as like a revolution. It's like, well, hang on a minute, British Leyland had been doing front-wheel drive for years, but no one wanted it because actually the fleets were scared of that kind of thing. And then British Leyland rushed out the Marina, which was basically just a Morris Minor clubman. You know, it's sort of there was. Let's not. I'm going to bore for England.
No, that's very good. I want to bring this.
We were
back.
talking about GM.
Yeah, exactly. I want to bring this back to GM. You're quite right about GM not diversifying, simply because they were incapable of diversifying. As I remember, the first and the biggest selling GM small cars were all actually Japanese cars. You look at Geo, the range which GM sell in America as their small car, or certainly did until fairly recently. They were Suzukis. They had cars built by the New Union of Motor NUMI, what's it called, NUMI. It was the Toyota Corolla was built and sold as a GM in America. I remember thinking at the time, oh God, you know, the rot setting in here. Unless they're really developing their own technology to do these things, they are surrendering to a greater power who have that technology, and I think their days are numbered. I remember thinking this 15, 20 years ago, but I never actually thought that it would come to what's happened this week.
This is the BBC's GM in Need 2008. Here's Terry.
And we'll be seeing a lot more from Nutsy Bear tonight on GM in Need. Hello and welcome back. Now your donations are still flooding in to help those American car makers less fortunate than us, but we still need your money, and in case you need any encouragement, here's a short film that will show you why your money can make a difference to an automotive giant once so vibrant and interesting, now so unfortunate and crap. I should warn you, what you're about to see contains a rear three-quarter view of the 2008 model Chevrolet Impala, which you will find upsetting.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
I spent some time with some motoring journalists last week talking about GM. We tried to reason out between us, well, what's going to happen? Who's going to go where? GM are going to have to start selling off some of their crown jewels in the way that Ford have, luckily, ahead of the pack to save some money. The first to go, Corvette. Who's going to buy Corvette? A Dubai concern, someone from the Middle East. If you think about it, that's where the money is for cars with big engines at the moment. So perhaps Corvette, because it's not a Chevrolet anymore, it's a Corvette. It's a brand in its own right. Okay, so they've sold Corvette and they've got some money to keep them going for another few months, perhaps long enough until Barack Obama's empowered to give them the credits and the loan that GM and Ford have asked for, which they've got to wait for till January at least, if they can hang on there. Okay, that's Corvette taken care of. Now then, Chevrolet. Who's going to want Chevrolet? Only America, although it's starting to make some inroads in Europe at the expense of Vauxhall to a point, really, and Opel to a point.
Although with Chevrolet, one might just ask the question, how much does the Volt come into this as being a part of their future business that's actually worth anything? I mean, is it just too much vaporware at the moment to be worth anything, or is it actually, going somewhere? Is it worth anything?
This will tip something. We've read that the Volt is coming to Europe. We've heard this. It's going to be a Vauxhall badged Volt. It could be an Opel badged Volt. Or is it going to be a Chevrolet badged Volt? Well, everyone said that, no, it's definitely going to be a Vauxhall badged Volt. No, they're going to bring it in as a Chevrolet. No, it could be the return of Opel to Britain. The truth is, the official line on this, and I have it on a reasonably good source, I think, no decision's been made. It could be any one of those three. We could see a Chevy Volt. We could see an Opel Volt in Britain. We could see a Vauxhall Volt. But let's assume that they're in such bad straits they've got to hammer home their core brand, Chevrolet, that we could see them holding out and making the Chevy Volt available as a Chevrolet in Britain, not the Daewoo Chevrolet, but Chevrolet instead of Vauxhall.
Well, this is absolutely the problem with Chevrolet. You look at all of the successful car companies at the moment, certainly, and a lot of them are German, and they have a consistent feeling and an image around the world. A Porsche means the same to someone in Australia, the same as it means to someone in America, as it means to someone here, as to someone in Germany. It holds a certain station. Not necessarily a good image always, but at least it's consistent. I think BMW are the same, Rolls-Royce are the same, Bentley the same, Audi the same. I would say Volvo are probably the same as well.
Agree.
There's certain things.
Suzuki.
In a way, Ford are the same. Ford are kind of honest, everyday cars around the world. There's no one country in the world that thinks that Fords are wildly prestigious, nor are they absolutely bottom of the barrel. They're just there. They're Marks and Spencer sort of cars.
Look what GM do. They split up their core brand into territories. Vauxhall in Britain, Opel in Germany and Ireland and the rest of Europe.
But
that's got to be doing damage.
Chevrolet doesn't have
that's
that
okay.
profile.
Chevrolet, what the hell does Chevrolet mean? In the US, it's one thing, which I guess is kind of, is again, sort of everyday, fairly cheap cars. But then in the UK, what they're selling are rebadged Korean cars. It doesn't really ring true. There's no consistency there. It's just a badge that's lazily glued to different cars. So there's no clarity of thought there. I mean, Volkswagen's another case in point. Volkswagen actually isn't as consistent because in this country they're regarded as slightly a cut above Ford and Vauxhalls. In Germany and France and places like that, they don't have that extra edge, even though their cars in many ways feel slightly more quality.
But
engineered, there's no, if you look at their advertising, and this is where you open a French or an American or an Australian car magazine and there'll be an advert for, case in point, BMW there. The typeface, the attitude that's sold in the advertisement, everything about it, even the slogans in English-speaking countries will always be the same. There's a complete clarity,
unity
of thought about what they're trying to sell you. And of course, because half of it's marketing and it's all puff, but that's half half the battle.
Yeah.
That's why Volkswagen have been so successful in this country, because they've
consistent
managed to sell the idea,
Yeah.
if only everything in life was as reliable as a Volkswagen.
Yeah.
You know, VW's reliability stats, if you look at them, are actually no better than the average Ford, maybe.
But
They're-
we believe them to be better.
we
But
believe
that's
them
not
because
the
it was
thing,
all
yeah.
predicated on the Beetle, which was
Yeah.
more reliable than the slop that was being sold to people
Yeah.
in the 50s.
Well, and they're also playing on that, I think, that general idea that, you know, German industry produces
Yes.
good, solid,
Yes.
reliable products,
Yes.
well engineered.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this whole line of thought would suggest that you would not market the Volt as a Chevrolet in Europe. But is there an argument that because it would be such a different kind of product, you're breaking with a petrol engine car, this is a whole new kind of thing?
No, I think it would sink it. I think it would.
Well,
because the reason the Prius has been a success, smoke and mirrors exercise though it is because it comes from Toyota as well, a name you can trust. People know the one thing about Toyota is it's reliable. So if you're going to put your faith in new technology, buy it from someone
need a
who has
respected brand.
has a history of, above all else, reliability.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I'd buy a Toyota computer because I would believe it would be
No,
reliable.
you wouldn't.
point.
You'd buy an Apple just like your last computer.
Well, there you go. See, there's loyalty. This is the thing. We're talking about a combination of basically engineering, but smeared like thick Marmite over the top, marketing. And like Marmite, marketing stinks and is an acquired taste. But nonetheless, it is an evil that we have to live with.
Okay, let's come back to the rescue plan for GM.
Well,
right?
is that what we're talking
Yeah,
about?
the rescue plan for GM.
That
Well,
was
fine.
it was back last year.
I
wasn't it?
think what you're saying is they need to ditch
I've
all
just
their
heard,
brands.
actually, while we were having that lengthy conversation, GM have gone bust.
It could have happened. Actually, just check your pockets. How much money have we got on us? Because we might actually be able to buy
Actually,
it.
I took a load of cash out before, so I've got about 80 quid. But this tenner is in case Rover comes up for sale again.
Yeah.
So I've got 70 quid to buy GM. I reckon that wouldn't buy GM. But I would take Chrysler off their hands.
No, they're not going to have Chrysler. They can't afford it. They haven't got the cash. No one's going to buy GM as a private venture group. They couldn't possibly sustain such
They
a
buy it for the
behemoth.
assets. They would buy it to strip the assets out.
Yeah.
They would not buy it as
Yeah.
a going concern.
Okay, now in terms of brand, you know, they could sell Corvette, they could sell Cadillac. Could they sell Cadillac to Vauxhall Opel, to GM Europe? Would that be an interesting rival brand?
They're on their third attempt to sell Cadillac in
It's
Europe.
not working, is it?
It's never worked.
Yeah.
Because... And this is why, interesting, I was going to say, they changed Deus to Chevys in Europe, was again based on market research. They got a bunch of people in the room and they went, have you heard of Deu? And everyone went, not really. And they went, have you heard of Chevrolet? Everyone went, oh yeah, I've heard of them. All right, we'll call them all Chevrolets. Didn't say, oh, you know, what do they mean to you? And because the thing is, they mean huge 50s finned land yachts. It'd be like going, well, okay, so have you heard of Girls Aloud to a bunch of pensioners? And they'd go, no. Have you heard of Elvis Presley? Oh yeah, I've heard of him. All right, well, we'll change the name of Girls Aloud to Elvis Presley. It doesn't mean that Girls Aloud are Elvis Presley or have any history with that. It's just slapping a name on because people in a focus group have heard of it.
Who's going to bail out GM? I reckon the Chinese are the best bet if Europe can't do it.
Well, strictly speaking, the Chinese are bailing everybody out. So,
Yeah.
In the end, yeah.
Well, Buick
Well, I was
is...
starving the other day and my local Chinese restaurant bailed me out.
Hey!
A 19, a 74 and some prawn crackers.
Thank you. The GL model. Yeah. The Chinese love Buick. When I was there, all the GM models sold in China are Buicks. I forget the name of the precise model. Some of them are, in fact, rebadged Kia or Hyundai.
Oh, there's a whole mishmash of stuff going on over there.
Absurd,
They sell, you
isn't
know,
it?
my Vauxhall VXR8
Yeah.
is the basic Holden version of that is sold in China as a Buick, I think. I know.
It could well be.
Or is that? It's also sold in the Middle East as a Chevrolet, I think.
That would make perfect sense.
No, you see, these are kind of places where it's almost like everything to play for. Buick got in there very early. GM went in there and decided that Buick was the name they were going to use to sell cars there. In the same way that Rover, when it was snapped up by the Chinese, you know, it was everything to play for because they'd been isolated for so long in China that they didn't have any of these preconceptions.
They'll almost sort of go for any brand that
Something
is,
but you could sell them a little bit of history
It doesn't
and
come
go,
with
look,
baggage.
we build beautiful old cars. Because especially if you cherry pick through, say, Rover's history or Buick's history for that matter, you could make it look fantastic.
Yeah,
you could gloss
yeah,
over some
yeah.
of the worst things that they did and present them as the fantastic.
I drive a Wolseley.
Exactly. Well, I bet you could. I bet you could. Easily.
O'Reilly.
Yeah.
The
Except, unfortunately, Riley means dog poo. No, it doesn't. Well, it might do. Here's another thing about renaming cars. That's another discussion for another day.
Oh, that'll come. Don't worry. So, my final thought on the whole GM thing, apart from trying to sell off the various components and hope that they make it through till January, there is one winner out of this. I think one clear winner.
Us. We've had an hour of conversation.
There is that element, but also I think the Ford Motor Company, the death of GM. If Ford are in a slightly better position,
they're
than
burning
GM.
more money a day, though.
Are they?
Yeah.
But they're kind of
they've got
next to topple. So,
but they've got more coffers. A little bit more than GM.
They have, and also what's interesting about Ford is that Ford of Europe makes money.
Yeah.
Don't Ford have a similar set of liabilities in terms of
pensions and all that?
Healthcare.
This is ultimately what has got them into so much trouble is their pensions and healthcare liabilities, and also the fact that in other countries where they could have been more ruthless. I mean, the UK in the 80s under Margaret Thatcher, for example, where she decimated the unions and then was able to close big chunks of British Leyland, is something that no American administration has been able to do. So the auto unions are one of the most powerful in the whole of the US, and so it's very difficult to just lay people off. And if you do, you have to pay them a pension and healthcare.
So maybe my theory that the only survivor out of all of the GM collapse is Ford ain't going to happen. It looks like Ford could go down to...
Something interesting will happen to Ford within the next 6 months.
Ford GM merger, maybe?
That's heresy, that is. Okay, guys, times are hard. Backs against the wall. We need to think of a way to make General Motors some money, and fast.
Steve? I think I got an idea.
Sexy American car industry executives are just one call away.
Oh, yes. My live rear axle makes my ride so hard.
Yeah, baby, the air conditioning in my office has been disconnected, and it's making me really hot.
Do I have to do this?
Just do it, okay?
Yeah, okay. Oh, gosh. Intensive cost-cutting measures have made my blinker stock action real stiff.
Call 1-900-555-4500. Desperate American car industry executives are waiting for your call now.
One of the things I keep meaning to do on this ridiculous programme that we make, but I never get around to doing, is responding to emails. I often write back to people who write to the show, but I often think that it's worth passing this stuff on to Richard and Zog, and more importantly to you guys at home, to let you know some of the quality communications that we get. Here's one which is very appropriate for tonight, and if this was a TV show and not an audio show, this would make even more sense than it does. It's from someone called Looking Spiffy. It says, fan of the podcast, etc. Can I buy you a pound? Brown nose. Good start to an email, that, fellas, isn't it?
We're being offered to buy a pint.
Yeah, buying a pint. I like that.
What are we still doing here?
It says, the reason for this email is I had a dream the other night where I was in a combination of the Reading Festival, the Monaco Grand Prix and the Le Mans 24 Hours, an endurance race on the streets of Monte Carlo with a load of bands playing and tents everywhere. One of the details that I can remember from it was that you lot, that is Richard, Zog and Gareth, were also in attendance, wearing matching wraparound amber sunglasses.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever worn matching anything in our lives.
How does he know what we look like?
But it does.
Well, I know he knows what you look like. You're off the telly, but me and Zog. I'd love to know what we look like in this man's dream.
It does sound like a kind of event, though. So you think he's,
I know.
It's about right, bands and live enduro. And this is the killer line. This is the one. This is also Richard had a beard.
Man is
Richard's
psychic.
wearing a beard today.
Ironically, I have.
time.
Can you hear this?
That's your beard.
I have
real
got a
beard.
beard. I ran out of shaving gel, and I'm not a.
Rub it against the windshield. Go on.
I'm not. Can I just do that? Oh, that's a pleasant sound. I ran out of shaving gel. I'm not a very well dressed man at the best of times. I don't shave often, and I haven't shaved for like 2 or 3 weeks. And but the thing is, I'm going to the classic car show tomorrow, so I thought I'd keep the beard on so that I can bond with all the people there. Going, hello, I've had it chromed.
And it says, I bet you got to my imaginary festival racy thing in a helicopter or a massive yacht. Actually, I went in a Gilbert Invader.
I went on the yacht.
You went on a yacht, did you? Will you say hello to the Gilbert people tomorrow at the Classic Car Show? They'll be there. I won't go into the rest of the details of that. It's a bit worrying, that email. But looking spiffy. Thank you very much.
That's a bit of an Alan Partridge moment.
Okay, here's another one.
I'm going to pick this up off
no, you're not. You're going to read the next one. Gareth, Richard and Zog writes, Gordon Mellis, who's the logistics manager for Husky Oil China Limited, which is kind of nice. Mail from the other side of the world. He says, Gareth, Richard and Zog, greetings from a Brit in China. A question for you as an A1GP expert. With the advent of the new A1GP cars, what's going to happen to all the old Lolas? Racing schools, experience days, or the ultimate track day car? Never seen any advertised. Are they too complex to be run, maintained, or driven by a mere mortal? Will they be sold on the open market? Are you still with A1GP? No, I'm not. Not,
you do know your stuff.
I know me A1GP stuff. It's a great question. Well, the truth is that they're keeping the chassis. A1 are hanging on to the Lola chassis. They're going to mothball them. They're going to store them somewhere.
Worn out, aren't they?
They're really worn out.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the third season, they were so worn out they were barely holding the wheels on. Seriously, they were really worn out. Really worn out. But the engines, they can't run them because they haven't got the engines, because they never owned the engines. They were leased from Zetec. So they've got Zytec. There I go again. Leased from Zytec.
And of course, you could stick new engines in them, but if the chassis are a bit knackered, so we probably won't be seeing them for sale anytime soon. You think?
No, they won't. I don't think you could buy one.
They'll be just bolted to rich people's walls, if anything.
Yeah, they might make offers. But great question, that, wasn't it? Great question.
That's a really good question.
Yeah. What happens to all racing cars?
Yeah. Most of them go to Donington, don't they? Oh, that's a great museum. Have you been to the Donington Museum?
No, I haven't. I've heard it's very good.
Ooh, isn't it? Luke writes from, I don't know where, Prestati possibly in North Wales, because he sent us some pictures of a rather nice Porsche in Gulf colours.
They were nice pictures.
Yeah, which I sent to Zog. Which,
how many emails have you got here?
Loads. That's why I have to press on. But thank you for that. We appreciate you guys reacting to the various things that we talk about on the programme. Zog is now going through his iPhone. There it is. We found the picture.
The car, isn't it?
Whoa! Is that a 997 in Gulf colours? Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, it's not Gulf colours because it's grey, but it's brilliant all the same.
As you say, it's grey, but it's the Gulf stripe and the Gulf logo.
Hey.
So it's
it's lovely.
That works, don't you think?
Good wheels as well.
And actually, speaking of Gulf colours, there was a very low slung kit car of some kind, I think it was, that I just caught out of the corner of my eye driving through Balham last week in Gulf colours. Don't know if anybody knows what that is, but I'd be interested to know what...
if anyone's listening in Balham, have a look.
Yeah, what was that?
Because I had to write about the odd car game out. Long-time listener. Do you remember this? We debated which company had to go, GM or Ford or Citroen or Lancia, this game. Someone says, as an American, certainly the Ford versus GM debate hit home a little differently. I like the Mustang better than the Camaro, but there's no denying the Corvette's legacy, whether at Le Mans, at the track or passing or getting passed by one, or their awesome capability of the amount of money you would pay. But there's one Ford I simply cannot believe that you forgot to mention, which is worth erasing GM for all time. The Ford GT40. Come on, guys, how could you miss that?
Did we miss that?
We did completely miss it.
Very good point.
Yeah,
I mean,
good catch.
You got us.
Andy Chittum, we didn't say actually, there was no sort of small print that said this was going to be a complete list of all Fords and GM cars worth saving or losing, but you're right, we did miss.
And you could argue that we were sort of focusing on, kind of production road cars rather than, the race-oriented stuff.
Also, it does rather prove this show is completely unrehearsed and that we...
Here's another one.
We just sort of make
do you remember we went to the motor show? Well, you didn't, Richard, but we went to the motor show. Yep. Zog and I spent some time on the Alfa Romeo stand. You've probably seen pictures of this in all the papers.
We were looking at the Mito and the...
What colour were the cars?
They were red. Rosso red?
They were all red. Every single car on the Alfa Romeo stand was red. They were beautiful. They looked great. Here's someone, I don't have the name, but they went to the show. He says he spoke about the colour of the cars on the Alfa Romeo stand. My cousin went to the show at the weekend. When they were looking at the Mito, they asked if the colour is available to buy, and apparently it's not. But the factory might do it for £15,000
What?
more than the range-topping Mito itself.
You could have it gold-plated for 15 grand, couldn't you? I mean,
That's a nice note, nice bit of info there, isn't it?
That's good.
It was
Good
a
skills.
I'm hoping you can use your deep cover contacts in the motor industry to expose the travesty that is those annoying non-cars they use in insurance adverts, writes Mike.
Yeah.
You know the ones? They look just like a popular mainstream family hatch but have no defining features. What are they afraid of? That a manufacturer will sue them for offering to insure one of their cars? Anyone with even an ounce of intelligence knows it's a Peugeot 307 with the D-badge grille of a Corsa photoshopped on. It's an insult to our intelligence and irritating. I love car fans.
it's a good question.
Well, you see, I think that's always quite good fun when you see those because, the inner geek, my beard is strong, can then spend some time trying to work out what it is. Interestingly, once upon a time, ages ago, I was doing a TV thing and we had to get a bunch of scrap cars, which we got from a company called Bickers, who are based out in East Anglia.
Dave
Dave Bickers.
Let me tell you about my Dave Bickers experiences. I've launched a Vauxhall Nova 60 feet in the air off an air gun with him.
Air cannon, that's why we needed him.
Yeah,
Dave
what a
Bickers
man.
Used to do all the stunts in the Bond films.
Yeah, that's right.
Stuff
Yeah.
like that.
And he built the Metro that went up the lighthouse. Do you remember the advert in the 70s
Yes.
and the Metro that went up the lighthouse? It had a little...
70s, Mr. Jones. The Metro was launched in 1980. God damn this beer!
Damn your beard. It was the 80s, you're right. They put a second engine in the Metro to drive the rear wheel so it would actually go up the steps in a lighthouse.
The Bickers, they're this sort of stunt and vehicle specialists who build unique cars for TV and film, and they did this thing with an air cannon for us, and they brought down a bunch of scrap cars that we could fire off the air cannon, and one of them was, on closer inspection, a Toyota Celica convertible from the late 80s.
Oh, Crayford? Or was it the Californian one?
Remember, they did a factory job, which they sold here briefly, but it was
Yeah.
preposterously expensive and no one bought it.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't tell that at first because the front and the back didn't look right, and it was because it had been used in an insurance advert. And they built it specially, and this is what there are these companies, and one of them is Bickers Action in East Anglia, who do this. They modify the cars. Now, I don't know about insurance adverts. I agree with our correspondent there, but I'll tell you where I think they do have to modify them because they don't want to get in trouble, is breakdown adverts. Because when the AA advertising something, they don't want to
Imply that
accidentally
Volkswagen.
imply. I mean, obviously they just use an Alfa. Everyone will go, well, yeah, fair enough, including Alfa. But then they don't. They don't dare risk that, so they have them modified. Of course, as a geek, you can always tell what car it is. It's a game. I don't object to this at all.
I love it.
Great game.
Okay, here's one from Gavin Brown in Odense in Denmark. I didn't choose these by geographical merit.
Hello, Denmark.
Yeah, hi, Denmark. This is great. Now, this is one to try. Hi guys, he writes. I won't do it in Denmark accent, no. Absolutely love the show, really entertaining to listen to and look forward to each episode. Thank you very much. Anyway, after watching Don't Call Me Carface 2, I had a chance to encounter with a colleague at work while she was eating an orange, which reminded me of another Carface. Try this one out. So if you're at home now and you've got an orange, and boys, you do this as well. Imagine you've got an orange. Here we go. Stick a crescent-shaped segment of orange peel, other citruses are available, I like that, in your mouth so that the peel is in front of your teeth but behind your lips. We've all done that, right? We've all done that, right?
Classic.
Make your eyes as wide and as bug-eyed as possible. Now, for extra points, try crossing them at the same time. I can do that.
Okay,
I can do that, yeah. Finally, make as big a smile as possible. Voila! The Peugeot 107. There you go.
Hey, actually, have you seen they've facelifted the Peugeot 107? There's some pictures released this week. What they've done is, orange peel in the mouth, like Marlon Brando in The Godfather, I think, who invented that look.
That's right.
And, but they've now put this big silver bar in it, so basically it looks like a teenager with a brace on its teeth.
That's true, yeah.
Bloody awful face. Really bad.
Yeah. That'll be in the next car face, don't you worry. I'll find the first teenager I can and say, stand there and look like a Peugeot. Okay.
Gareth Jones was arrested this week.
For approaching teenagers. Hi, team. Gareth's comments about the ITV F1 idents had me thinking. This is great. The Sony ident was 5 seconds long and the silly ITV ident with the roulette wheel after it was another 5 seconds. If we average perhaps 5 advert breaks per live qualifying show and 8 per race show, that's a total of 13 adverts, 26 ident airings, 18 races a season, 460 ident airings per season, and 10 seconds each. That's 1 hour and 18 minutes of pure identry alone per season.
No wonder it's been getting on so much.
Yeah, thank you, Doug in Leicester. That's a
Why
useful...
aren't some of these people doing this show?
That's great, isn't it?
Clever
They are
than
now.
us.
They are now. They're contributing.
I can't believe you haven't read these out before.
I know.
I didn't realise our
This
readers
is
our listeners were so clever.
They're great.
And stuff.
They're funnier and cleverer than we are. That's not that difficult, though. Hi, Gareth, Richard and Zog. I was listening to your show today when you started on the wacky races thread. I know I'm probably hideously behind. I was amused by the fact that you think that DC is Peter Perfect, since my partner has observed that Schumacher and Massa are the perfect Dastardly and Muttley.
Yeah, that's true.
I can't do Muttley without choking. He's right. He's right. P.S. Gareth, can you say hello to Bobby Troman? Oh, yes, I will. That's a personal note. And that concludes the emails for the moment. Otherwise, we'll be here forever. You've been listening to Gareth Jones on Speed. He was Richard Porter.
Goodbye.
He was Zog.
Goodbye.
And I'll leave you with a odd piece of music, which I recorded in the style of Jake Thackray. Now, either you know who Jake Thackray is or you don't. He was a big hero of mine in the 1970s, a Yorkshireman who sung odd songs in a French style. But this is not Jake Thackray, this is my version. This is Fake Thackray. And as a final nod to GM, this one's called the Vauxhall Casa Nova. See ya!
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is a song about loving your car a bit too much. I've always thought it's a very good idea to wash and clean your car. But to hoover it and polish it and wax it all day might be taking things too far. It's nice to look clean, but that could be obscene and not heard of. It's not a must. To stroke a car's bonnet and rub up its bumpers is bordering on lust. His roving eye looks at wings, not her thigh, the mind of a wild rover. The grip of the tyre, the look of love, he's a Vauxhall Casa Nova. Verse 2. Oh, they're pretty and they're slick and they're quicker than us, and many of them are fun. And remember to care for them whatever you do, 'cause a car is just like a woman. They need caressing and steering and warming up before they can perform. They get up to speed quicker and they're lots more fun the more recently they were born. His roving eye looks at wings, not her thigh, the mind of a wild rover. The grip of a tyre, the look of love from that Vauxhall Casa Nova. His thoughts are much coarser, his ideas are crude. He plays pocket snooker with his balls and his cue. He's not lusting for girls, though he sees their appeals. He's not moved by their legs, 'cause his fantasies all have wheels. His roving eye looks at wings, not her thigh, the mind of a wild rover. The grip of the tyre, the look of love from that Vauxhall Casa Nova. His roving eye looks at wings and not thighs, the mind of a wild rover. The grip of the tyre, the look of love from that Vauxhall Casa Nova. Cars are sexy, of that there's no doubt. They have curves and backsides and fronts. We love them and want them, and we'd sleep with them too, if only they had.
Get more info on this show at garethjones.tv. Write to the show on speed at garethjones.tv or subscribe for free at the iTunes store. Gareth Jones on Speed is made by Whizbang.